If it's okay with the board, I'd like to allow Brandon to give us an update on what he's gathered relative to our CT project in Phipps Bend.
Okay.
You know, every time you come to a podium, we're wanting to be impressed.
I'll do my best. And I'll be really brief with everybody tonight. I know everybody's got other places to be. I'm not going to go through a PowerPoint, but I want to show you a couple of pictures here in just a minute. I've got them loaded in PowerPoint. So, just to give you an update of where we are, as of today, we have negotiated property transfer with Joint Venture Board, Hawkins County Industrial Board, Industrial Development Board, and the Kingsport Economic Development Board. We had an advisory team get together, reviewed CTE enrollment data, labor market data, and stakeholder survey input to look at a potential list of course offerings, and we've compiled a tentative list, not final by any means. Then we took that information, met with the architecture firm that we typically use. They reached out on their own and offered to do some pro bono work for us to do some conceptual drawings to help us promote this project and get it out to the community and kind of give people something to look at and make it a little more tangible to them. So they've done that, and I want to show you those plans this evening. And I've asked Mr. Bobo not to print these just yet. We don't want to
playing ball with you guys.
we want to roll these out in a few weeks, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So,
Hey Jeff, just a second, I wanted you to repeat that for me.
On the record.
So, and I've got some others here we'll pass around in a minute. This is an overview site plan of the piece of property that we've been talking about. It's directly adjacent to TCAT, so if you're looking at the top of the screen, TCAT is in the part of the picture that's cut out. And that's going to be difficult for you to read all the stuff that's in there, but if you want to see it, I can get it to you electronically. It's easier to read. That's a conceptual floor plan. There will have to be some changes made to this. Some of the classroom spaces are probably a little too small. It's something to give us an idea of kind of how we could lay this out. And then this is the exciting part. They did a nice little rendering for us of the facade, and here's just a different look at it, kind of what it would look like from the road front. So we're really excited about this, and the reason I wanted to talk to you tonight is because I believe, have an opportunity to really get a head start or get a jump start on securing some funding. We've been trying. We're looking for funding every day. The issue that we're coming up against is this is a chicken or an egg kind of thing, where we're looking for grant funding, we're looking for others outside of this area to contribute, but until we have funding secured on our side, it's difficult to get them to commit to anything. It's also almost impossible to find grants that will allow us to apply for grant funding if we don't have local match of some degree. So what I would like to ask the board to consider is, would the board consider committing just a vote of confidence to commit local funding toward this project when we have secured the rest of the funding? And by doing that, what that would allow us to do, I think that would really position us well to actually start bringing dollars in. If the board would be willing to do that, I would then take that information and present to the county commission and ask them to consider contributing local match to those dollars. That would be beneficial because in conversation with Representative Hicks, he is willing to support this project and put it before the budget committee to try to get this project worked into the governor's budget for 2022. The issue is with the window of time for us to pull this off is shrinking rapidly. So that's why I'm here talking to you this evening. I appreciate your time. If you've got any questions for me, I'm happy to try to answer them at this point.
What's the amount of local funding that you're talking about, Brandon?
I think I'll defer to Mr. Hickson on that.
So I would say public perception wise, if we're willing to invest 1.5 in 2 artificial turf projects for our high schools, I think we ought to be looking at the neighborhood of 2 million. And Melissa and I believe that when it comes time to secure that or actually budget that amount from the board, we can probably be somewhat creative in leveraging some of the one-time federal dollars that have offset some of our bigger maintenance projects. We're saving some money there year after year. We're saving some money in other areas that we may be able to set aside for this type of scope of project. But I do think that Brandon hit the nail on the head by saying that if we take ownership of this as a board and say we are dedicated to this priority as a priority moving forward, and we're willing to commit our own funding toward that end, I think that that speaks very highly of where we have this as a goal for the county.
And this money, this commitment would have to be made when?
Well, I think what we're really asking for today is for the board to consider essentially a vote of confidence saying we support this project and are willing to do a local commitment when the time comes. It wouldn't be an official action at this point. We wouldn't be moving any money today, or well, next week if the board were to act on it next week. But it would allow Representative Hicks to use that as evidence that there is local commitment. And I have to say, in speaking with Representative Hicks, he's very supportive of this project, and I think, you know, if it were up to him and if he had the power to do so, I think he would get it worked into the governor's budget today. But it's really going to help him convince the rest of the folks on that committee to put it forward to the full legislative body if we've got local commitment.
Could we, if board members are in agreement, maybe under new business, if someone wanted to make a resolution or make a motion in the form of supporting our expansion of CTE and verbally committing up to $2 million for this building and moving forward, and do that next week.
What's the next commissioners meeting that you would need to present this to?
The day after the board meeting.
Okay.
It's actually not a full commission meeting, it's an ad hoc committee. I've already approached them and tried to plant the seed here, but I want to attend that meeting on Friday and remind them. And whether or not the ad hoc committee is able to, so that committee is looking at the COVID funding. It's not clear whether or not they can do anything with COVID funding for this project, but it's a good opportunity to get it in front of several commissioners, and a couple of which who are on the budget committee, and get that process started.
Is it helpful to you for us to kind of verbally say that tonight and then do it next week, or does it matter?
I would be grateful if you'd say it tonight, but definitely next week in the form of a motion.
Yeah, I mean, like formally next week, but.
Okay, is everybody in agreement with that?
Can I just make one slight
Yes, sir.
recommendation, and it is the board's motion, this is not me, but I just want to throw some advice for the sake of Melissa and our finance team. I would feel better by saying not to exceed 2 million. That gives us the wiggle room to do something that's comfortable and affordable for us in the future. And I would also add the language at the point of which the project is near completely funded, so that we're not having to earmark anything well in advance that we maybe can't afford, but we are still prioritizing the fact that we're willing to put our own funding into this project as a priority.
Did I also understand you, Brandon, that when, like we make the commitment and you're looking for grants, you're looking for every source for businesses that put money into this. So this commitment might actually not be as much. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Potentially.
If, potentially,
Yeah.
it's not set in stone. Nothing's set in stone.
Potentially, and to finish the list of where we are, so what I hope, and my hope tonight is that the board would be willing to do that next week, that the county commission would consider doing that in the coming weeks, and then hopefully Representative Hicks can secure some state funding. I've asked Jeff not to publish these pictures tonight because we want to roll this out to the business and industry community at the February chamber breakfast that we host. And at that time also ask that body and business and industry community to consider contributing to this project as well, because it's something that's going to benefit them in the long term, well, in the short term too. So there are lots of potential funding streams. But until we have a commitment, it's difficult for us to get the first one.
We need to show that Hawkins County Schools is serious about building this facility and moving Hawkins County forward and developing a labor force where we can recruit industry so our children can stay here.
And to that end, one of the things that, when we were meeting with the industrial board, one of the first things that industry looks at is they look at what the school system's doing. And then they look at the local TCAT, the nearest TCAT or technical training center that's in the area they're looking at. We've got TCAT. This provides us a seamless transition from high school to TCAT or straight into industry, and we can work with industry being in Phipps Bend to meet their training needs on some of our folks in school, so that when they finish with us, they either transition directly to TCAT to finish up or right into industry. So I think it's a huge investment for the community, because potential investors and industry coming in are going to see that transition from high school all the way up.
Go ahead.
The cost, like, for this to come to fruition, like this picture, the total, I mean, is there an idea of cost? I know you're saying 2 million, and you're talking about a match from the county. Is that 1 million each, or is that 2 million each?
That'd be two each.
So are we looking at like a $4 million project, or like a $6 million, like?
No, it's going to be more than that. So now, and Jeff, you listened closely too. Take this number with a grain of salt, because these are conceptual drawings. We could not construct the building based on that floor plan. It's going to take full-blown engineering and study of what that building would take. So the best we can do at this point is estimate based on square footage. And if we use the number the architect told us to use based on square footage, the rough and very rough estimate, Jeff, is
Look at me.
for the building is right at 9.5.
So we're looking at more than half of like a business donation, most likely, or community.
Well,
A mixture of that and state funding.
hopefully we can get a sizable chunk of funding from the state, Governor Lee's budget.
All right.
What we're basically doing is we're leveraging this idea, which we think is a no-brainer, against or with, along with, and on top of Governor Lee's commitment to further CTE across the state of Tennessee. And the sooner we get shovel-ready, idea-ready, funding-ready, we're in line for those monies that he's going to give somebody.
Okay.
And I think we just want to get in line real quick.
Yeah, I would love to get us in line this year. I think if we miss this window, we're looking at a year delay in terms of state funding.
Yeah.
That is worrisome to me, because there are other projects similar to this that are going to be on the docket this year. And you may have seen it in the news. There's a project in Carter County that's similar to this. It's slightly different, very similar, and it's almost assuredly going to be in the governor's budget. And we want to get on that wagon at the same time if we're able to.
Wonder if there'd be any lottery funds, because I know the lottery, there's a lot of grants.
It's something I've talked to Representative Hawk about several times. He's very involved in those conversations and how they manage those funds. As it stands today, there's not, but there is a
Lottery is almost
tremendous,
exclusively post-high school.
yeah, there's a tremendous surplus of those funds at the moment.
Yeah.
And I can assure you, every time I see him, I'm lobbying him hard to divert some of that away from post-secondary and into K-12.
Well, as we know, as a board, our legislators can move pretty quick when they want to. So, but if the board's in agreement and the new business, we'll put, someone bring a motion before the board in support of this. Okay. We good?
Personally, I can tell you tonight, and I think everybody's in support, most everybody.
Okay.
I can speak for myself on that.
All right, anybody want to volunteer to bring the motion?
Maybe remotely, but I will.
Okay. Is everybody good with that?
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you. Were,
Good job, Brandon.
were you impressed?
Always. I like what you did with the Crayolas there.